Another thing that happened today that we mentioned here at the top is that the judge threatened Trump with jail. And the prosecution had alleged 10 violations of the gag order. The judge ruled in favor of the prosecution, of the prosecutors on 9 of those. Trump owes $9,000, which the judge seemed to understand was, peanuts to Donald J. Trump, but did threaten him with jail time. David Kelly, former prosecutor at SDNY, just made an interesting point about juries and judges. And he said that the jury is very cognizant of the treatment of the judge. They view the judge as the person who, I think already someone had a dental emergency, and so court was canceled. I mean, the judge is the advocate for the jurors in all of this. And I wonder if you can just weigh in on Trump's comportment as a criminal defendant.
Well, I think very much so with the judge. You saw there was a juror who wanted to leave the day before the Memorial Day long weekend because they had a plane ticket. And so there's no court that day now. I mean, he's very accommodating to them, and just the way he speaks to them, he is their advocate in court. And you have to wonder, we watch him, I'm sitting in the overflow room on the closed circuit TV, and you see he has his eyes closed a lot, and you wonder how, there's jokes that are made about that, and his demeanor is this and it's that. Let's talk at the heart of why that matters. It's on the late night shows, the comedy shows, but it really matters to me for two reasons. One is the jury's watching.
Right.
They're left with an impression they can't not be watching him. They would be watching any defendant, let alone a former president of the United States. And the second thing about his demeanor in court that I really think is significant compared to, I've seen him now in other court settings, is he is not lashing out in court in front of normally there's just been a judge there. There's no jury present. And he will act out in the courtroom. And he's not doing that now because he knows that the penalty for doing that will be swift and he will go to jail if he does it. He was slapped on the wrist when he did it in jury selection. He was huffing and puffing in front of a prospective juror and he got spoken to immediately.
I think
and so I think that his demeanor is important for those two reasons, if not more, but particularly those two.
George, does he know you're there? I mean, you're one of his favorite triggers.
Yes, he did. He learned that after the first break as he was leaving the courtroom, walking down the center aisle, and I was sitting about 5 or 6 rows back on the center aisle, and he saw me. And he kind of gave me a dirty look, and I grinned at him. I smiled like this, and that was it. It was anticlimactic, but yeah, I didn't get the sense that it wasn't warm. It wasn't a warm and fuzzy look he gave me.
You have an interesting vantage point. I mean, you know him. You knew him personally. Kellyanne worked for him, still works for him. What is your sense of what the internal combustion is like? The need to sort of restrain himself in court with the jurors watching and the judge in control. This is not his forum. And who he is. Like, he doesn't live in a house. He lives in his own club so that there will be fake receiving lines for him when he goes down to meals. I mean, he is not used to being this out of control.
Right. I mean, he's a narcissist. Narcissists are obsessed with control. He's also a sociopath, and sociopaths don't believe in following rules. They have difficulty in doing that. I will say that he's been, relatively speaking, on his best behavior. It may well be because of the judge. The judge, he knows that this judge may throw him in the clink. But also, I think it might have something to do with the fact that maybe the point has been made to him that part of the reason why he got hit with an $88.3 million judgment down the street was because he acted out in front of the jury, walking out in front of the jury and the court in the middle of proceedings, and otherwise make himself look like a jerk. From behind, it's hard to see exactly what he's doing all the time. One of my colleagues in the room said he thought that Trump fell asleep at one point, but I didn't get the sense that he was doing anything untoward in the sense that it was disrespectful to the court or to the judge in front of the jury. Now, obviously, he has been disrespecting the court outside in the courthouse and outside the courthouse, but not in the courtroom, it seems.
So what are you looking forward to on Thursday when court resumes?
We're gonna return to the sanctions for the violation of the gag order. I
Right.
think that's going to be first
9:15,
thing.
yeah.
He decided some today, but there's still a few outstanding. So I think that will be it. And then I think we're going to return to Keith Davidson. So we're going to hear a lot more about how those deals went down from his vantage point. He was a good witness. So I think and then the cross-examination of him.
Will we hear from Kaiser Sosa, aka Dylan Howard?
If I was a betting person, I would say no. He's in Australia, and I can't imagine what would compel him to come back.
It's
But
not
at
like
one
the
point,
moon.
at one point, Josh Steinglass, the government lawyers, actually referred to Keith Davidson as Mr. Howard, and he's the sort of his presence is everywhere, but he's not there.
Yeah.
And it would be amazing, but we have to hear only through him from text messages and emails.
I mean, Zoom is a thing that everyone. It's just an amazing,
Right.
amazing dynamic. We'll continue to call on
Right.
you. Thank you very much.